Welcome back to Cowboy Ironheart, the channel where tonight we bring you the story of three words that were not a boast and were not a threat, and were not a performance of any particular quality, but were simply the most honest available statement of the available fact by the largest man in the Nebraska Territory standing on a widow's porch at the specific moment when the specific statement was the most required available thing. Tonight we travel to the small farming community of Grange Hollow in the Nebraska Territory in the autumn of 1882, where Anna Reed had been managing the impossible for 17 months and where the bank had finally sent the man to the door. She had been shaking since she saw the horse at the end of the road. She knew what the horse meant. She had dressed carefully anyway because the careful dressing was the only available form of the available dignity, and she had stood at the kitchen table for 3 minutes composing herself, and then she had gone to the door. The bank's man had arrived in the form that the bank's men arrived in, which was the form of the smooth voice and the papers and the reasonable tones and the specific quality of the polite certainty that was the certainty of someone who had the legal available instrument and who was not required to be unkind because the legal available instrument was unkind enough on its own behalf. She opened the door. She was shaking. She was not going to let him see the shaking. And then the porch shifted, because the largest man in Grange Hollow was standing behind her left shoulder. He had not been there a moment before. He was there now. And the bank's man suddenly became very polite indeed. "Welcome to Cowboy Ironheart. If that already put something in your chest, leave us a word below. There is a specific quality of the alone that was the most complete available form of the alone, the form that was not the alone of the empty house and the quiet evenings. Though those were also the available forms, and she knew those forms well enough. The most complete available form of the alone was the alone of the person who was managing the impossible without the specific available person who had been the other half of the managing of the possible. The alone of someone who was doing two people's work from the position of the one available person, and who was doing it correctly and at the full available quality, and who was finding in the doing of it correctly at the full available quality. That the correctly and the full available quality were not going to be sufficient because the impossible was the impossible and the one available person doing the impossible correctly was still the one available person doing the impossible, and the impossible was not going to become the possible through the correctness of the doing but only through the presence of the second available person who was no longer present. Anna Reed had been in the most complete available form of the alone for 17 months. And the 17 months had been the 17 months of the correct management of the impossible at the full available quality of the one available person. And the impossible had not become the possible in the 17 months because the impossible did not become the possible through the sufficient application of the one available person's full available quality across the sufficient available time. She had come to Grange Hollow in the Nebraska Territory from the circumstances that produced the coming, which were the marriage to Thomas Reed at 25, and the 3 years of the genuine partnership on the Reed farm outside Grange Hollow, and then the illness that arrived in Thomas in the second spring of the 3 years, and that progressed in the specific relentless form of the illness that did not respond to the available medical treatment of the Nebraska Territory in 1882, and that completed itself in the June of 17 months ago when Thomas had been 31 and she had been 27, and the farm had been hers in the full available form of the hers. That was the hers alone form rather than the hers and Thomas form. The farm had come to her with the specific available complications of the farm that had been managed through the illness by the person who was managing the illness, and the farm simultaneously at the full available quality of the one available person who was managing both, which was the quality of the someone who was doing the available best from the position of the available impossible, and whose available best was not the same as the available best of the person who was not also managing the illness alongside the farm. The farm had the mortgage that the Nebraska Territory farms had when the farm had been established on the Nebraska Territory frontier with the specific available capital of the people who established the Nebraska Territory frontier farms, which was the capital of the people who had enough for the establishing and not enough for the establishing without the mortgage. The mortgage had been Thomas's mortgage in the form that it was Thomas's mortgage when Thomas was alive and managing the farm at the full available quality of the two-person genuine partnership. And the mortgage had become Anna's mortgage in the form that it was Anna's mortgage when Thomas was not alive and the farm was being managed by the one available person from the position of the available impossible. She had been managing the mortgage for the 17 months in the form that it was managed when the one available person was managing everything else at the full available quality of the one available person, and the mortgage was one of the everything else. She had made the payments in the months when the payments were possible to make, and she had communicated with the First Nebraska Bank of the county seat in the specific professional form that was the form she used for the communications with the institutions that required the professional form. And the First Nebraska Bank had received the payments in the months when the payments were made and had communicated in the return form that was the bank's return form for the accounts that were making the payments. The summer had been the specific summer that the Nebraska Territory farms in the eastern sections sometimes had. The summer that was the summer of the insufficient rainfall, and the specific combination of the insufficient rainfall and the heat that produced the crop yield that was the crop yield below the crop yield that the mortgage payment required for the making. And the below the required yield had produced the situation that she had been managing since the August, in the form of the situation that required the management that was beyond the full available quality of the one available person who was managing everything else at the same time. The bank had sent the letter in September in the specific form of the bank's letter for the accounts and the situation that the below the required yield produced. The letter that was written in the professional form of the institution communicating the institutional position, and that said the things that the institutional position required the saying of in the professional form. She had received the letter and she had read it and she had sat with it in the kitchen for the length of time that the sitting with of the most significant available difficult thing required. And then she had done the available thing, which was the writing of the professional return communication to the bank explaining the summer situation and the below the required yield and the specific available plan for the addressing of the situation in the available form. The bank had received her professional return communication and had responded in the form that the bank responded when the professional return communication explained the situation and proposed that plan, and the bank had determined that the plan was the plan that required the sending of the man to the door rather than the acceptance of the plan through the available institutional channels. The man had come on a Tuesday morning in the second week of October. She had seen his horse at the end of the road from the kitchen window, and she had understood what the horse meant, because the horse was the specific horse of the specific man, and she knew the specific man and what the specific man's arrival at her door on a Tuesday morning in the second week of October meant in the context of the September letter and the professional return communication and the bank's institutional position. She had dressed carefully because the careful dressing was the available form of the dignity. She had put on the navy blue dress that was the dress she wore when the significant things were coming. The dress that was more carefully pressed than the work dresses, and that communicated through the pressing that she was taking the significant things seriously in the form that was the available serious form. She had pinned the bun more carefully than the usual mornings because the neat, careful bun was the one available form of the dignity that could not be taken. The dignity that was hers regardless of the institutional position of the First Nebraska Bank. She had stood at the kitchen table for 3 minutes. She had been shaking. She had composed herself in the form that was the composed form of someone who was shaking and who was not going to show the shaking to the bank's man because the shaking was the interior thing. The interior thing was hers and not the bank's man's, and the bank's man was not going to have the interior thing as well as the institutional position. She had gone to the door. There are moments, friends, when the right available thing arrives at the right available moment in the form that the right available thing takes when the right available thing is the most required available thing. And the form it takes is not always the dramatic form or the announced form or the form that was organized around the impression it was going to make. Sometimes the right available thing arrives in the form of the large man behind the left shoulder who was not there a moment before and who is there now, and who does not say anything beyond the 3 available words. And who does not need to say anything beyond the 3 available words, because the 3 available words are the most complete available statement of the available fact in the minimum available form. If this story is already finding the right place in you, please subscribe to Cowboy Ironheart, where every week we bring you the stories of the people who needed the specific thing at the specific moment and the people who provided it in the specific available form. Now let us be on the porch with Anna Reed and the bank's man and the largest man in Grange Hollow who arrived before anyone had time to arrange for the arriving. He had been at the Reed farm for the practical reason that the practical reason provided, which was the fence assessment of the south section that bordered the Calloway spread, and that he had been meaning to assess since the September, and that he had driven his wagon to the Reed farm to assess on the Tuesday morning of the second week of October, because the Tuesday morning of the second week of October was the available morning for the fence assessment, and because the fence assessment was the practical reason that the practical reason provided. He had come around the north side of the farmhouse on the way to the south section fence, and he had seen the horse tied at the front porch post from the north side of the farmhouse, and he had understood what the horse meant, because the horse was the specific horse of the specific man, and he knew the specific man and what the specific man's arrival at Anna Reed's door on a Tuesday morning in the second week of October meant in the context of the available information about the Reed farm situation that the Grange Hollow community's general available knowledge and his own specific adjacent operation knowledge had been producing for the available months. He had not arranged the arriving at the porch. He had simply moved from the north side of the farmhouse to the front porch in the specific efficient form of the large man who understood what the situation required and who was organizing himself around the actual requirement of the actual situation rather than around the impression of the response to the actual situation. He had arrived at the porch behind her left shoulder at the specific available moment. She had just opened the door. The banksman was there in the form that the banksmen were in when they were at the door, with the papers and the smooth voice and the polite certainty of someone who had the legal available instrument told. And then the banksman saw what was behind her left shoulder. And the banksman became very polite indeed. He said good morning to the banksman in the quiet, plain tone of the person who was saying the genuine greeting in the genuine form rather than the performed greeting in the performed form. And the banksman said good morning back in the tone of someone who had just significantly revised the available terms of the available engagement. He said that he understood the banksman had some business with Mrs. Reed, and the banksman said yes in the form of the yes. That was the yes of someone who was now experiencing the available business with Mrs. Reed in the specific additional context of the largest man in Grange Hollow standing on the same porch. He said in the quiet, plain form of the three most significant available words in the available moment that he would handle it. She heard the three words from the position of someone who was standing at her own front door, holding the composure she had been composing for 3 minutes at the kitchen table. And the three words arrived in the interior in the form of the most significant available communication in the 17 months, which was the form of someone saying with the complete, genuine certainty of the plain, honest statement of the available fact that the thing that she had been managing alone for 17 months had someone in it with her now, and that the someone was the specific someone who was the largest man in Grange Hollow and who had the dark brown Nebraska spring earth eyes and the very large calloused hands and the quiet, plain certainty of someone who meant the three words in the complete available form of the meaning. She stepped aside, not because she was surrendering the door or the dignity or the farm or any of the available things that were hers, because the stepping aside was the available form of the receiving of the three words in the available honest form of the genuine receiving of the genuine thing. The form that communicated that the receiving was the genuine receiving rather than the managed form of the adequate acknowledgement. He stepped forward. The banksman experienced the full available presence of the largest man in Grange Hollow at the close available distance of the front porch of the Reed farm. And the banksman found in the experiencing of the full available presence the specific available form of the institutional position reorganizing itself around the new available information. The new available information was that Mrs. Reed was not alone. And the not alone was the most significant available piece of information that the banksman had received since the horse had been tied at the front porch post. The conversation on the porch had the specific quality of the conversation that happened when the institutional position encountered the full available presence of someone who understood that institutional position and who was not organized around the impression of the challenging of the institutional position, but around the actual content of the institutional position and what the actual content required in the form of the specific available response. Ezra Calloway understood the institutional position of the First Nebraska Bank in the way of someone who had been managing the serious country operation for the full adult life and who had encountered The institutional positions of the financial institutions of the Nebraska Territory in the various available forms that the full adult life of the serious country operation produced as the available forms. He understood the institutional position not in the form of the adversarial challenge or the performed resistance, but in the form of the person who understood the available terms and the available instrument and the available options, and who was organized around communicating the available understanding in the form that was most directly organized around the actual situation rather than the thought impression of the engagement. He talked with the banksman in the specific form that he used for the significant practical exchanges, which was the form of the minimum available word saying the maximum available form in the maximum available form. He asked the specific questions that produced the specific information about the available terms and the available timeline and the available options in the form that the specific questions produced. When the specific questions were organized around the actual content of the available instrument, rather than the social management of the exchange. The banksman answered the specific questions in the form that the banksman answered when the banksman was in the presence of the largest man in Grange Hollow and the presence was organized around the actual content of the available instrument in the direct form. She stood at the door and listened, not in the form of the person who was being managed through the occasion, but in the form of the person who was receiving the significant available information about the available terms and the available timeline and the available options in the specific quality of the listening that was the listening of the before version having the interior access for the full quality of the receiving. She had the composure on in the form that was the composure of someone who was not performing the composure, but who was in the genuine form of the person who had composed herself at the kitchen table, and who was maintaining the genuine form through the duration of the porch. She heard the available terms in the form that the available terms were. The bank required the payment of the outstanding amount in the form that the institutional instrument required it, and the timeline was the timeline that the institutional instrument provided, and the available options were the options that the institutional instrument made available, which were the payment of the outstanding amount within the timeline or the available instrument's available consequence. The available consequence was the available consequence that the institutional instrument provided for the account in the situation that the below the required yield had produced. He received the available terms and the timeline and the available consequence with the dark brown eyes and the complete quality of the deliberate stillness that was his quality for the significant available information. The stillness of someone who was receiving the full available content of the significant available information in the complete quality of the genuine receiving, rather than the performed receiving. He said in the quiet plain form of the minimum available words, that he understood the available terms and the timeline and the available consequence, and that Mrs. Reed and he would be at the bank on Thursday with the available response to the available terms. He said it with the complete calm certainty of the plain, honest statement of the available fact, and the banksman received it in the form that the banksman received things when the things were said. That in that form by the largest man in Grange Hollow. The banksman said that Thursday would be acceptable in the form of the banksman for whom the available engagement had undergone the significant revision, and he said that he would communicate the Thursday appointment to the bank in the form of the professional communication, and he said good morning in the form of the final social arrangement of the conclusion of the available occasion. He said good morning back in the quiet plain form, and the banksman untied the specific horse from the front porch post and rode back in the direction of the county seat in the form of the banksman, who had experienced the full available presence of the largest man in Grange Hollow, and who was carrying the experience back in the direction of the county seat. She stood at the door and watched the horse until the horse was no longer visible, and then she turned. He was still on the porch with the dark brown eyes and the large calloused hands at his sides in the deliberate stillness and the quiet plain quality of the person who had done the available thing, and who was now at the available next thing in the form of the waiting for the available next thing to present itself in its available form. She said his name, Ezra. She said it in the form that was the before version's form for the significant available communication, the form that was the direct, honest form rather than the managed form. He said yes, in the form of the complete, genuine availability for whatever the significant communication was. She said in the form that was the most honest available statement of the most significant available interior thing that she did not know he was there. He said he had come for the south fence assessment and had come around the north side of the house and had seen the horse and understood what the horse meant. She said yes. She said she had seen the horse from the kitchen window and had understood what it meant. He said yes. He said that he had been aware of the situation with the bank since the September letter in the way of the adjacent operation neighbor who was paying the right kind of attention to the available information about the adjacent operation. She received this with the dark blue eyes in the form of the before version, having the interior access for the genuine receiving of the significant information. The form that was not the managed acknowledgement of the helpful neighbor's awareness, but the genuine receiving of the specific available fact, that someone had been paying the right kind of attention and that the right kind of attention had produced the specific available presence at the specific available moment. She said in the honest, direct form that she did not know what Thursday meant. He said, in the minimum available words, that Thursday meant he was going to the bank with her, and that the going to the bank with her was the available form of the handling of it that the three available words on the porch had said he was going to do. She received this with the dark blue eyes in the form of the before version, receiving the most significant available piece of practical information in the 17 months of the managing of the impossible. She said in the form that was the before version's honest, direct form for the significant available questions that he did not need to do that. He said in the minimum available words that the doing of it was not organized around the need of it, but around the available fact of the situation, and what the available fact of the situation required from the person who was the adjacent operation neighbor and who had been paying the right kind of attention and who was therefore in possession of the full available picture. She received this, and she said in the honest, direct form that the full available picture was the difficult picture. He said, yes. He said that the difficult picture was the available picture, and that the difficult picture was the picture that required the Thursday, and that the Thursday was the available form of the handling of it. She said nothing for the honest length of time of the genuine receiving of the most significant available statement of the most significant available interior event of the 17 months. Then she said in the before version's quiet, honest, direct form that she had been managing alone for 17 months. He said yes. He said he knew. She said she had not been managing alone in the form of the choice to be alone, but in the form of the available alone. That was the alone when the only available person was the one available person. The impossible was the impossible that the one available person was managing. He said yes. He said he knew that too. He said it with the dark brown eyes and the specific quality of the knowing. That was the knowing of the person who had been paying the right kind of attention from the adjacent operation for the full to 17 months and who was not performing the knowing but was in the genuine form of it. She looked at him from the door of the Reed farmhouse in the Nebraska territory. October morning, with the dark blue eyes in the form that was more fully open than they had been at the start of the Tuesday morning. The form that was the before version having more interior access than it had had at the beginning of the banksman's visit. The composure she had put on at the kitchen table was still the available form, but it was the composure in the different quality from the composure of the first 3 minutes. The different quality of the composure that was in the context of the three available words, and the Thursday and the dark brown eyes, and the deliberate stillness of the large calloused hands at the sides of the largest man in Grange Hollow. He said in the minimum available words that he was going to assess the south fence and that he would be back at the house at noon. She said yes. She said she would have the noon meal ready. He said yes, and he said thank you in the plain honest form of the genuine gratitude for the genuine provision, and he stepped off the porch and went in the direction of the south section fence with the specific unhurried efficiency of the large man who had decided the available thing and who was executing the available thing in the only available honest form. She stood at the door for a moment longer. The shaking had stopped. Not entirely, and not in the dramatic form of the complete resolution of the 17 months of the impossible. But the shaking from the Tuesday morning porch had stopped in the specific available form of the shaking that stops when the most impossible available part of the available day has completed itself in the form that was not the form she had expected it to complete itself in. She went back inside. She had a noon meal to make, and there was a Thursday to prepare for it. And for the first time in the 17 months, the Thursday was not something she was preparing for alone. Wednesday was the day between the Tuesday and the Thursday, and she spent it in the form that the day between the significant things was spent in when the significant things were the most significant available things in the available period, which was the form of the genuine preparation for the Thursday combined with the honest sitting with of what the Tuesday had produced in the interior and what the interior was doing with the produced thing. The honest sitting with was producing the specific available understanding that was the understanding of the Tuesday in the patient honest form rather than the managed form. The understanding that was arriving in the incremental honest form of the genuine understanding rather than the immediate form of the convenient conclusion. She prepared for the Thursday in the form of the careful, thorough preparation of someone who understood that the Thursday required the full available quality of the preparation. She went through the accounts in the form that she had been going through, the accounts for 17 months, which was the form of the complete honest accounting of every available number in the form that the complete honest accounting produced as the available honest picture of the available situation. And the available honest picture of the available situation was the honest picture rather than the managed picture. The picture that included the below the required yield summer and the September letter and the outstanding amount and the available timeline and all the available forms of the difficult thing in the honest complete form. He came on the Wednesday evening, not in the arranged form of the organized preparation meeting or the managed social occasion of the helpful neighbor, but in the natural available form of the person who had said Thursday and who understood that the Thursday required the Wednesday evening in the form of the preparation that was the genuine preparation. He came with the dark brown eyes and the quiet, plain quality and the specific available thing that the Wednesday evening required, which was the specific available knowledge of the institutional position and the available options, and the available forms of the response to the institutional position that the full adult life of the serious Nebraska Territory operation had produced as the available knowledge. They sat at the kitchen table with the accounts and the lamp, and he went through the accounts with the complete quality of the genuine engagement with the actual numbers in the actual form rather than the performed engagement with the social occasion of the looking at the accounts. He read the accounts in the honest complete form, and he understood the accounts in the honest complete form, and what the honest complete form of the accounts told him he received with the dark brown eyes and the deliberate stillness without the performance of the response to the difficult thing or the managed sympathetic response to the person who was in the difficult thing. He said in the quiet plain form of the minimum available words for the maximum available content that the accounts were the accounts of someone who had been managing the impossible correctly for 17 months. He said it in the plain, honest form of the accurate observation, rather than the sympathetic management of the accurate observation toward the more comfortable available form. And she received it with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the genuine reception of the accurate observation in the form that was the honest form rather than the managed form. She said in the honest, direct form that the managing of the impossible correctly was not going to be sufficient for the Thursday. He said yes. He said he knew. He said that the managing of the impossible correctly for 17 months was the most significant available evidence of the quality of the person doing the managing, and that the Thursday was the Thursday because the impossible was the impossible, and not because the managing was inadequate. She received this with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the before version receiving the most accurate available description of the most significant available interior subject. He said in the minimum available words that the Thursday had a specific available approach, and that the specific available approach was the approach that was organized around the actual content of the available institutional position and the available options, and what the available options could produce in the form of the genuine negotiation with the institutional position from the position of someone who understood the institutional position in the complete available form. He described the specific available approach in the precise available form that was his form for the significant practical content, the form that communicated the complete available understanding in the minimum available words without the performance of the expertise or the managed impression of the capability. She listened with the complete quality of the genuine listening and asked the specific questions that the genuine listening produced as the specific questions. And he answered the specific questions with the specific content that the genuine listening had earned as the answer. The exchange had the quality of the genuine practical exchange between two people who were both in the complete quality of the genuine engagement with the actual content. And the quality of the genuine practical exchange was the quality that was the most available, honest form of the two people doing the significant available thing together, rather than the one person doing the significant available thing alone. They finished the preparation at the available hour, when the preparation was the complete available form of the preparation for the Thursday, and she put the accounts in the specific order that the Thursday required, and he sat back from the kitchen table with the complete quality of the deliberate stillness that was his quality, when the significant practical thing had been done in the complete honest form. She sat at the end of the kitchen table preparation in the form that was the before version's honest direct form for the most significant available communication. That she wanted to tell him something about the Tuesday. He said yes in the form of the complete genuine availability. She said that she had been shaking when she answered the door. She said it with the dark blue eyes and the honest direct form of the before version, saying the most available interior thing in the most available honest form. The form that did not manage the saying toward the impression of the adequate composure, but that said the thing in the plain honest form of the genuine thing. He received it with the dark brown eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving of the significant available communication. He said in the minimum available words that he had seen the shaking. She received this with the dark blue eyes and she said yes, and she said that she had been trying not to show it. He said he knew she had been trying not to show it, and that the trying not to show it was the composure, and the composure was the armor, and the armor was the available form of the dignity that Tuesday required. She received this with the dark blue eyes in the form that was the form of the before version, receiving the most accurate available description of the most significant available interior experience. From the outside in the genuine form. She said in the honest direct form that the shaking had stopped after he left for the south fence. He said yes. He said in the minimum available words. That the shaking stopping after the significant difficult thing had completed itself in the available form was the honest body reporting the honest interior in the most available honest form. She said yes, and she said it had been the specific shaking of the specific difficult thing rather than the general shaking of the 17 months, and that the stopping of the specific shaking was the body's honest report of the specific difficult thing having completed itself in a form she had not expected. He said in the minimum available words that the form she had not expected was the form of the not alone. She received this with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the complete genuine reception of the most significant available statement in the 17 months. She said, yes. She said it was that exactly. Thursday arrived in the form that the Thursday arrived in when the Thursday was the significant available day that the preparation had been preparing for. She dressed in the navy blue dress with the careful pressed attention of the available dignity, and she pinned the bun in the neat, careful form of the dignity that could not be taken, and she had the accounts in the specific order that the Wednesday evening preparation had established as the correct available order. He arrived at the Reed farm at the specific hour that was the correct hour for the Thursday. Arrived with the wagon and the dark brown eyes and the quiet plain certainty of the person who had said Thursday and who was at the farm on Thursday in the form of the genuine availability for the significant available thing. She came out of the house with the accounts and the available dignity, and she was in the form of the not shaking rather than the form of the shaking. The form that was available when the significant available difficult thing was the thing that was being addressed rather than the thing that was approaching. The wagon ride to the county seat had the specific quality of the significant practical occasion in the form of the preparation having been complete, and the actual occasion being the available present. The quality of the two people who had done the preparation together and who were now in the occasion together in the form of the genuine parallel presence, rather than the solo presence in the available difficult thing. She had the accounts and he had the specific available knowledge, and together they had the thing that was the most significant available form of the preparation for the Thursday, which was the not alone. The First Nebraska Bank of the county seat was the institution in the form that it was, and the bank's officer who received them was the bank's officer in the form that the bank's officer was when the appointment had been communicated from the man who had been to the Reed farm door and who had returned to the county seat with the specific available information about the full available context of the Mrs. Reed account. The conversation in the bank had the quality of the genuine negotiation between the institutional position and the specific available approach that the Wednesday evening preparation had established as the approach. And he conducted the specific available approach in the minimum available words of the maximum available content and the quiet, plain certainty of the person who understood the institutional position and who was organized around the actual content of the available negotiation rather than the impression of the engagement. She presented the accounts and she answered the specific questions from the bank's officer, with the complete honest quality of the before version having the interior access for the full quality of the engagement. The quality that was the genuine engagement with the actual content rather than the managed form of the adequate social response to the institutional occasion. At the end of the available negotiation, the institutional position had been modified in the form that was the available modification of the institutional position when the specific available approach was the approach and when the approach was executed in the complete honest quality of the genuine engagement with the actual content. The timeline had been extended, the available terms had been modified in the specific form that the specific available approach had produced as the available modification. The farm was not the farm in the form of the available consequence. She received the modified terms with the dark blue eyes in the form that was the form of the before version having the complete interior access at the most significant available moment in the 17 months. He said in the minimum available words as they came out of the bank into the Nebraska territory October afternoon that the modified terms were the available form of what the Thursday was for. She looked at him with the dark blue eyes. He looked at her with the dark brown ones. Neither of them required anything from the October afternoon except the October afternoon being what it was, which was the day the impossible became the possible in the available form. The wagon ride back from the county seat had the specific quality of the significant practical occasion, having completed itself in the form that was the best available form of the completion. The quality of the two people who had been in the significant practical occasion together and who were now in the aftermath of the significant practical occasion together in the form of the genuine aftermath rather than the managed form of the adequate aftermath. The Nebraska Territory October afternoon was around them, and the wagon moved through it with the familiar motion of the horse on the familiar road, and she was in the wagon in the form of the not shaking rather than the shaking. The form that was the most complete available form of the not shaking that she had been in since approximately the second month of the 17 months. She was aware of the specific quality of the not alone in the wagon, on the way back from the county seat in the form that the not alone was available to be aware of when the interior had the complete access for the genuine receiving of the available fact. The not alone was not a thing she had been in the complete form of since the June of 17 months ago, and the being in the complete form of the not alone was itself the most significant available interior event of the Thursday. More significant than the modified terms, and more significant than the extended timeline, and more significant than the farm not being the farm in the form of the available consequence. The modified terms and the extended timeline and the farm not being the farm in the form of the available consequence were all the most significant available practical events of the 17 months. And they were not the most significant available interior event of the Thursday. The not alone was the most significant available interior event of the Thursday. She did not say this on the wagon ride back from the county seat. She was in the honest sitting with of the Thursday in the form that she was in the honest sitting with of the most significant available things, which was the patient honest form rather than the arranged form of the saying of the significant available thing in the immediate aftermath of the significant available event. The patient honest sitting with was the form, and the form required the time that it required. And the wagon ride back from the county seat was the available form of the time that the patient honest sitting with was in. He was in the wagon in the form that was his form for the significant practical occasion having completed itself, which was the form of the quiet, plain certainty of the person who had done the available thing and who was in the aftermath of the doing in the natural available form. He was not performing the aftermath or managing the impression of the aftermath toward any particular available form. He was simply in the wagon with the dark brown eyes and the large calloused hands on the reins in the practiced way of the 38 years of the driving of wagons and the quiet, plain certainty of the person who was entirely where they were. She said, Somewhere in the middle of the wagon ride, back in the form of the genuine direct form, beginning to be more available in the specific context of the Thursday and the not alone, and the wagon ride back through the Nebraska territory October afternoon, that she wanted to say something. He said yes in the form of the complete genuine availability. She said that in the 17 months of the managing of the impossible, she had understood the managing of the impossible as the available form, and the available form as the available form of the person who was the one available person in the situation that required the two available people. And that the available form had been the managing of the impossible, because the managing of the impossible was the only available thing, and the only available thing was the thing that was done. He received this with the dark brown eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving, and he said yes in the form of the complete genuine understanding of the actual content of the actual thing. Being said, she said that the Thursday had produced a modification of the available form that she had understood as the available form. The modification that was the modification of the not alone being the available form, rather than the alone being the available form. And that the modification was the most significant available modification of the 17 months in the specific quality of the interior modification, rather than the practical modification. He received this with the dark brown eyes and the complete quality of the genuine receiving, and the warmth in them that was the warmth of the genuine thing receiving the genuine thing. He said in the minimum available words that the not alone was the form he intended to be the available form. He said it with the dark brown eyes and the quiet plain certainty of the person who was saying the truest available thing in the minimum available words. And the saying of it in that form communicated the full available weight of the genuine intention without the performance of the intention or the management of the impression of the saying of the intention. She received it with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the before version, receiving the most significant available statement of the most significant available interior fact. The October days after the Thursday had the quality of the significant interior event having completed itself in the form that was the best available form, and the days being the days in the form of the modification that the best available form had produced. She was doing the October farm work with the quality that had the modification in it in the grain rather than on the surface. The modification of the not alone being the available form in the grain of the available daily life rather than the available form only of the specific significant occasions. He came to the Reed farm in October in the natural available form of the adjacent operation neighbor, who was in the genuine thing and who was therefore present in the adjacent operation in the natural available daily form rather than the arranged occasional form. He came for the south fence assessment that had been the original practical reason of the Tuesday, and that had been superseded by the Tuesday porch and the Wednesday evening preparation and the Thursday, but that was still the available practical reason in the form of the genuine practical requirement. He assessed the south fence with the thorough, honest quality of the genuine assessment, and he addressed the available south fence problem with the specific materials and the specific approach that assessment had determined as the available approach. She brought coffee at the midpoint of the south fence work in the form of the practical provision of the practical working occasion, and he received it with the large calloused hands and the dark brown eyes and the quiet plain thank you of the genuine gratitude. They stood at the south section fence with the coffee and the Nebraska territory October around them, and neither of them was managing the standing into any particular available form, but was simply in it in the natural available form of the two people who had been on the Tuesday porch and the Wednesday evening kitchen table and the Thursday wagon and the Thursday bank and the Thursday wagon back, and who were now at the south section fence with the coffee in the natural available form. He said, in the minimum available words, that the south fence was the fence that had been the fence since the spring, and that the spring addressing had been the addressing of the surface rather than the addressing of the underlying condition, and that he was going to address the underlying condition. She said yes, and she said that the spring addressing had been the available spring addressing, and that the available spring addressing had been the spring addressing of the one available person managing the impossible, and that the one available person managing the impossible had addressed the available surface because the underlying condition was the addressing that required more than the one available person had available in the spring. He said yes. He said that was the accurate description of the spring addressing. She said in the honest, direct form. That there were more underlying conditions in the available farm that had been addressed in the available surface form because the underlying condition addressing was not in the available reserve of the one available person managing the impossible. He said he had been aware of the specific available underlying conditions from the adjacent observation, and that the awareness was the awareness of the person paying the right kind of attention rather than the awareness of the person managing the available impression of the awareness. She received this with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the before version, receiving the most accurate available description of the specific quality of the awareness. He said, in the minimum available words, that the available underlying conditions were the available underlying conditions that were going to be addressed in the form of the genuine addressing rather than the available surface addressing, and that the genuine addressing was going to happen in the natural available form of the not alone rather than the available form of the alone. She received this with the dark blue eyes entirely open in the form that they were in when the before version had the complete interior access at the most significant available moment of the available. It's changed. She said in the before version's honest, direct form that she had a question. He said yes in the form of the complete, genuine availability for whatever the question was. She said that she wanted to understand the form of the not alone in the available specific form rather than the available general form, which was to say she wanted to understand what the not alone looked like in the available daily form rather than only in the available significant occasion form. He received this with the dark brown eyes and the quiet, plain certainty, and he said, in the minimum available words, that the not alone in the available daily form looked like the south fence and the coffee and the Wednesday evening kitchen table and the available underlying conditions being addressed in the genuine form rather than the available surface form, and that it looked like those things every available day rather than only on the available significant occasions. She received the every available day with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the before version, receiving the most significant available statement of the most significant available interior fact, the form that was the most significant available form. She said, in the form of the before version's honest direct form for the most direct available thing, that she had been aware of him since the second month of the 17 months in the specific form of the awareness that was the awareness of the adjacent operation neighbor who was paying the right kind of attention, and that the awareness of the paying the right kind of attention had been the awareness that was the awareness of something specific rather than the general community awareness. He said yes. He said he knew. She said in the honest direct form, that she had not had the available interior for the awareness in the complete form, because the available interior had been fully allocated to the managing of the impossible. He said yes. He said that the full allocation of the available interior to the managing of the impossible was the correct available allocation for the person in the managing of the impossible, and that the Thursday had produced the specific available modification of the allocation that the managing of the impossible was not the only available form. She said in the before version's specific quick direct form that was available when the before version had the complete interior access, that the modification of the allocation was the understatement of the available October. He received this with the dark brown eyes and the warmth in them in the form of the genuine reception of the before version's genuine direct form, and she received his reception with the dark blue eyes, in the form that was the most open they had been in the available 17 months. The October afternoon was the October afternoon. The south fence was the south fence. The coffee was the coffee. And the not alone was the not alone in the every available day form, which was the most significant available form of the October. November arrived in Grange Hollow with the honest cold of the Nebraska territory in the form that November took in the serious prairie country when the productive season had completed itself, and the available landscape was in the form of the honest prairie rather than the performing prairie. The form that showed the available country in the most available honest quality, because it was not performing the production but simply being what it was in the available season. The farm work was the serious winter preparation work, and the daily requirements had the quality of the genuine demands of the serious country in the preparation season. And Anna was doing the November farm work with the quality that had been building since the Tuesday porch and the Wednesday evening kitchen table and the Thursday bank and all the available forms of the October that had followed. The quality was different from the quality of the 17 months before the Tuesday porch. Not dramatically different in any single available dimension, but specifically different in the grain of the available daily life in the form of the modification. That was the modification of the be. Not alone being the available daily form rather than the available occasional form. The not alone was in the grain of the November farm work in the form of the underlying conditions being addressed in the genuine form rather than the available surface form and in the form of the morning assessments having the adjacent operation knowledge available as the available resource rather than only the one available person's knowledge and in the form of the specific available daily. Things that were the available daily things when the not alone was the available daily form. He came every day in November. Not in the arranged form of the organized schedule or the managed provision of the helpful neighbor, but in the natural available form of the person who had said the every available day, and who was present in the every available day in the form of the genuine presence rather than the managed presence. He came in the pre-dawn for the morning stock work, and he assessed the available underlying conditions with the thoroughness of the full adult life of the serious Nebraska territory operation, and he addressed the available underlying conditions in the form of the genuine addressing rather than the available surface addressing. And the farm was the farm in the form of the genuine addressing of the genuine underlying conditions rather than the surface form. She was cooking differently in November. The before versions form of the cooking was more available in November than it had been in the 17 months of the managing of the impossible. The form of the cooking that was organized around the specific pleasure of the making rather than the functional minimum of the adequate provision. She had not been cooking in the before versions form in the 17 months, because the before versions form required the interior reserve that the managing of the impossible had been drawing on continuously, and the reserve had not been available in the form that the before versions cooking required. The reserve was beginning to be available in November in the form of the not alone being the available daily form rather than the alone being the available daily form. And the beginning to be available reserve was producing the before versions form of the cooking as the available form. He noticed, he said, about the specific dish that she made on the second Thursday of November, that the kitchen had a different quality in November than it had had in the available October visits. She received this with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the before version receiving the accurate observation of the significant available interior modification. And she said yes, and she said it was the cooking in the before version's form rather than the functional minimum form, and that the cooking in the before version's form was the available form in November in the degree that it had not been the available form in the 17 months. He said yes, and he said that the cooking in the before version's form was the specific available evidence of the interior reserve beginning to be available in the form that it was available when the managing of the impossible was not the only available allocation of the interior reserve. She received this with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the genuine reception of the most accurate available description of the most significant available interior event in the November form. They were at the kitchen table in November, in the natural available form of the two people who were in the genuine thing and who were in the daily available form of the genuine thing with the Nebraska territory November outside the window and the real fire in the hearth and the before versions cooking between them. He talked about the practical available things of the practical November work in the form that was the minimum available words for the maximum available content, and she talked about the practical available things in the form that was the before versions form for the genuine exchange, rather than the managed form of the adequate social interaction. And the exchange had the quality of the genuine exchange between two people who were both in the complete quality of the genuine engagement with the actual content. She told him things in November that she had not told the Grange Hollow community in the 17 months. The telling came in the natural form of the genuine exchange having built toward the depth that was available when the before version had the interior access in the complete available form, and when the genuine exchange had been the genuine exchange for the sufficient available time. She told him about Thomas in November in the specific honest form of the before version's quality for the significant available things about the most significant available person. And he received Thomas with the dark brown eyes and the complete quality of the genuine reception of the actual person rather than the category of the person. He asked the specific questions that showed the reception was the genuine reception, and she answered with the specific content of the actual person, and the exchange had the quality that it had when Both people were in the complete quality of the genuine engagement with the actual content of the actual person. She said the thing about the accounts on the third Saturday of November at the kitchen table with the November outside the window. She said, in the before version's honest, direct form, that she had been managing the accounts in the form of the complete honest accounting for the 17 months, and that the complete honest accounting had been the form that produced the available honest picture of the available situation, and that the available honest picture of the available situation was the picture that had been the most difficult available picture she had been in the possession of for the 17 months, because the honest picture was not the comfortable picture, and the comfortable picture had not been the available picture. He received this with the dark brown eyes and the complete quality of the genuine reception, and he said, in the minimum available words, that the complete honest accounting was the most significant available evidence of the quality of the person doing the accounting, because the complete honest accounting was the form that required the specific quality of the person who could be in the possession of the honest picture without the management of the honest picture toward the more comfortable available form. She received this with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the before version, receiving the accurate description of the most significant available quality of the person she was. He said, in the minimum available words, that the accounts were going to be the accounts of the not alone in December in the form that was the form of the genuine partnership rather than the solo management, and that the genuine partnership form of the accounts was the form that was going to produce the available modification of the honest picture in the direction of the honest picture that was the picture of the possible, rather than the honest picture of the impossible. She received this with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the before version receiving the most significant available practical statement in the form of the genuine practical content. She said in the honest direct form, that the December accounts in the genuine partnership form required the saying of the specific available thing that she had been in the patient honest sitting with of since the Tuesday porch. He said yes in the form of the complete genuine availability for whatever the specific available thing was. She said in the before version's honest direct form for the most significant available communication, that she had understood since approximately the third week of October that what the Tuesday porch and the Wednesday kitchen table and the Thursday bank and the October south fence and the November daily form had been producing in the interior was the specific available thing that the interior produced when the genuine thing was the available form, and that the specific available thing that the interior produced when the genuine thing was the available form was the thing that she had not been in the available form of since the June of 17 months ago. He received this with the dark brown eyes and the complete quality of the genuine reception, and he was quiet for the honest length of time of the complete genuine reception of the most significant available communication. Then he said in the minimum available words of the truest available thing, that he had been in love with her since the second month of the 17 months, when he had first seen the complete honest accounting of the impossible being done correctly by the one available person who was doing it correctly from the position of the impossible and who was not performing the doing of it correctly, but who was simply doing it correctly in the genuine form of the person who did not know another available form. She received this with the dark blue eyes entirely open in the before version's complete available form. She said in the before version's honest direct form for the most direct available thing, that the second month of the 17 months was a significant available duration of the honest sitting with the before the Tuesday porch. He said yes. She said that the Tuesday porch had been the specific available moment that the significant available duration of the honest sitting with had produced as the available form, the moment when the bank's horse at the end of the road and the understanding of what the bank's horse meant and the moving from the north side of the farmhouse to the front porch had been the natural available form of the honest sitting with arriving at the appropriate available moment. She said in the before version's direct honest form that the appropriate available moment had been a very specific available moment. He said, yes. He said it had been. She received it with the dark blue eyes and the quality that was the before version entirely present in the interior at the most significant available moment of the November. The November kitchen was the kitchen. The genuine thing was building toward the complete available form. In the grain of the available daily life. In the form of the every available day. And December was the available next. She went to the Calloway spread on a Friday morning in the second week of December when the Nebraska territory had the specific quality of the serious prairie winter in the committed form. The cold that required the real fire and the real preparation and the genuine quality of the daily engagement with the available conditions. She went in the direct form of the before version, going to the specific person for the specific reason, which was the going to the person who had said the every available day and who had been the every available day in the form of the genuine presence since the Tuesday porch. Because the Friday morning was the morning when the significant available thing that the patient honest sitting with had been building toward had arrived at the complete form that required the saying. He was at the Calloway spread's workyard when she arrived, doing the December morning work in the form that was his form for all available work, which was the form of the genuine, thorough engagement with the actual thing rather than the impression of the engagement. He looked up with the dark brown eyes when she came into the yard and waited with the complete quality of the genuine availability for whatever the arriving was about. The waiting that was his quality for all available things that required the genuine waiting rather than the arranged waiting. She came into the yard with the dark blue eyes and the December Nebraska territory morning around her, and the form of the person who had done the patient honest sitting with of the most significant available interior subject through the available weeks since October, and who had arrived at the complete form of the understanding, and who was at the Calloway spread on the Friday morning because the Calloway spread on the Friday morning was the specific available destination for the complete form of the understanding. She said she had something to say. He put down the available tool in the form of the deliberate setting aside that communicated the available tool was not the available priority. And he was in the complete quality of the genuine availability for whatever the significant thing was. She said in the before version's honest, direct form for the most significant available communication. That she had been in the patient honest sitting with of the most significant available interior subject since the Tuesday porch, and that the patient honest sitting with had been producing the understanding in the incremental honest form of the genuine understanding across the available weeks, and that the complete form of the understanding had arrived in the form that required the saying in the direct form rather than the continued sitting with. He said yes, in the form of the complete, genuine availability. She said that the most significant available interior subject of the patient honest sitting with was the specific available thing that the Tuesday porch and the every available day and the genuine partnership form of the accounts and all the available forms of the not alone had been producing in the interior in the form of the genuine interior event rather than the managed interior event. She said it with the dark blue eyes in the complete available form of the before version, having the full interior access at the most significant available moment. He waited with the dark brown eyes and the complete genuine availability. She said in the before version's honest direct form for the most direct available thing that she was in love with him. She said it with the dark blue eyes entirely open in the before version's full available form and the honest direct form of the before version's most significant available direct communication. The form that was organized entirely around the actual content of the actual interior rather than the impression of the saying of the actual interior content. He received it with the dark brown eyes and the warmth in them that was the warmth of the genuine thing, receiving the genuine thing in the complete quality of the genuine reception. He was quiet for the honest length of time of the complete genuine reception of the most significant available communication, and then he said, in the minimum available words of the truest available response, that he had been waiting for the Friday morning in the form of the complete patient waiting. That was the waiting of the person who understood that the Friday morning would come in the form it was ready to come in, and who was therefore in the complete patient waiting rather than the available impatience of the person who was not in the genuine waiting, but in the managed waiting toward the arranged arrival of the significant occasion. She received this with the dark blue eyes and the quality of the genuine reception of the most significant available statement about the most significant available interior fact of the available relationship. The statement that communicated the full available weight of the genuine waiting without the performance of the waiting or the management of the impression of the waiting toward any particular available form. She said in the before version's direct form for the available question that the significant available statement produced as the available question. That the complete patient waiting had been the available form since approximately the second month of the 17 months. and that the complete patient waiting of the second month of the 17 months to the Friday morning of the second week of December was the significant available duration of the complete patient waiting. He said yes. He said it had been. She said in the before version specific quick direct form, but that the complete patient waiting was itself the most significant available evidence of the quality of the person doing the waiting, because the complete patient waiting was the form that was available only to the person for whom the genuine thing was worth the complete patient waiting, rather than the available adequate substitute for the genuine thing. He received this with the dark brown eyes and the warmth in them, and she received his reception with the dark blue ones, in the form of the before version, entirely present in the interior at the most significant available moment. He took her hands in both of his very large calloused hands, in the form that was the natural available form of the genuine thing received in the genuine form. And the warmth of the very large calloused hands in the December Nebraska Territory morning was the warmth of the every available day and the three available words and the genuine partnership form of the accounts and all the available forms of the not alone in the specific physical form of the genuinely safe. She felt the warmth with the before version entirely present in the interior, in the complete available form of the genuine safe rather than the merely not dangerous. She said in the before version's honest direct form that she wanted to say something about the three available words on the Tuesday porch. He said yes in the form of the complete genuine availability. She said that the three available words were the most significant available words of the 17 months, and that they were the most significant available words of the 17 months, not because of what they produced on the porch in the form of the banksman becoming very polite, and the institutional position being addressed in the available form, though those were the most significant available practical events of the available period. The three available words were the most significant available words because of what they communicated about the quality of the person who said them in the form that they were said in. He said, in the minimum available words, that the three available words were the available honest statement of the available fact in the minimum available words, and that the minimum available words for the available honest statement of the available fact were the only words that were needed. She said yes, and she said that was exactly the thing. That the minimum available words for the available honest statement of the available fact without the performance of the statement or the management of the impression of the statement were the form that was available only to the person who was organized entirely around the actual content of the actual fact, rather than around the impression of the engaging with the actual fact. He said that the actual content of the actual fact was the fact that needed handling, and that the handling was the available form of the genuine presence in the significant available moment, and that the genuine presence in the significant available moment was not the organized occasion but the natural available form of the person who was paying the right kind of attention and who was therefore present at the available moment rather than at the arranged moment. She said yes. She said that the natural available form of the presence at the available moment rather than the arranged moment was the specific quality of the person she had been understanding since the second about month of the 17 months in the form of the awareness that was more than the adjacent operation neighbor awareness. He said in the minimum available words of the most significant available asking, that he wanted to ask her the thing that the complete patient waiting and the every available day and the Friday morning had been building toward. She said yes in the form of the complete genuine availability for whatever the thing was. He said in the minimum available words that he wanted to ask her to build the thing that the Tuesday porch and the Wednesday kitchen table and the Thursday bank and the October south fence and the November kitchen and the December Friday morning had been building. The thing that was the genuine partnership form of the available daily life rather than the adjacent operation form of the available daily life. The thing that was the every available day in the permanent available form rather than the every available day in the adjacent form. He said he wanted to ask her to marry him. She looked at him with the dark blue eyes and the complete available form of the before version entirely present in the interior at the most significant available moment of the 17 months. And then some. She said yes. She said it in the minimum available word of the before version's complete, honest, direct response to the most complete available asking. The minimum available word that carried the full available weight of the genuine thing in the genuine form without the performance of the genuine thing or the management of the impression of the saying. He held her hands in the very large, calloused ones, and the December Nebraska territory was the available world around them, and the genuine thing was the genuine thing in the permanent available form. She said in the before version's specific, quick, direct form that the three available words on the Tuesday porch had been the beginning of everything. He said yes in the minimum available words. She said in the direct, honest form that she handled very well. He received this with the dark brown eyes and the warmth in them in the form of the genuine reception of the before version's specific, quick, direct humor, and she received his reception with the dark blue ones in the full quality of the before version's genuine humor available in the genuine form. He said in the minimum available words that he intended to keep handling it. She said in the before version's direct form that she was glad to hear it. He said yes. He said in the minimum available words that the it that required the handling was going to be the et that was the shared available daily life rather than the et that was the institutional position of the First Nebraska Bank. And that the handling of the shared available daily life in the genuine partnership form was the most significant available form of the handling. She said yes. She said that was the most accurate available description of the iet that required the handling. The December morning was the December morning. The Calloway spread workyard was the workyard. The genuine thing was in the permanent available form. And the it that required the handling was the it that was going to be handled in the every available day of the genuine partnership form, which was the most significant available form of the IT. And the handling of it was going to be the most significant available daily thing. And it had started with 3 words on a Tuesday porch. And 3 words were enough. When they were the right 3 words, said by the right person, at the right available moment. January arrived in Grange Hollow with the committed form of the Nebraska Territory serious prairie winter, the form that was the serious winter entirely itself, in the most available honest form of the serious winter, the cold that required the real fire in the genuine form and the real preparation in the genuine form and the genuine quality of the daily engagement with the available conditions that the serious country in the serious season required of the people who were in it. Anna was doing the January farm work with the quality that was the most complete available form of the quality in the 17 months and then some period since Thomas had died. The quality of the before version entirely present in the interior in the degree of the full available presence rather than the managed adequate presence. The farm was the farm in the form of the genuine addressing rather than the available surface addressing. The underlying conditions that had been addressed in the available surface form for the 17 months because the available surface addressing was the available form of the one available person managing the impossible, had been addressed in the genuine form across the October and November and December in the form of the not alone, being the available daily form. And the genuine addressing of the underlying conditions was producing the farm in the form of the farm that had the genuine addressing in it rather than only the available surface addressing. He came every day in January in the natural available form of the genuine thing in the permanent available form. Not the adjacent operation form and not the every available day in the adjacent form, but the every available day in the permanent form that the December Friday morning had established as the available form. The January mornings had the quality of the genuine daily life in the form of the 2 people who were in the genuine thing and who were in the natural available daily form of the genuine thing with the Nebraska Territory serious winter outside the window and the real fire in the hearth. She was in the full reserve in January, in the degree that the full reserve was available, when the genuine thing was the permanent available form of the daily life, and the managing of the impossible was not the only available allocation of the full reserve. The full reserve being available in the full available degree was producing the before version in the full available degree. The degree that was the most complete available degree of the before version's availability in the entire available period since the June of the 17 months ago. And the before version in the full available degree was producing the specific available forms of the before version's full available form in the grain of the available January daily life. She was cooking in the before version's full available form in January. Not the November form of the beginning to return, and not the December form of the more available than November, but the January form of the full available form. The form of the before version's complete engagement with the making in the complete quality of the genuine engagement that produced the specific quality of the thing that was made in that form. He received each specific thing in the January kitchen with the minimum available words of the truest available thing about the specific thing and the dark brown eyes and the warmth of the genuine. Reception of the genuine thing. She told him. At the kitchen table on the second Saturday of January, with the January serious winter outside the window and the real fire in the hearth and the before version's Saturday noon between them. That she wanted to say the thing about the three available words that she had been in the patient honest sitting with of since the December Friday morning at the Calloway spread. He said yes, in the form of the complete genuine availability. She said that the three available words on the Tuesday porch were the three available words that were worth the saying in the form that they were worth the saying in, which was the form of the minimum available words for the maximum available content said by the person who was organized entirely around the actual content of the actual fact, rather than the impression of the engaging with the actual content of the actual fact. And that the form of the three available words was itself the specific available evidence of the quality of the person who said them, because only the person organized entirely around the actual content could say the minimum available words for the maximum available content in the form that carried the full available weight without the performance or the management. He received this with the dark brown eyes and the complete quality of the genuine reception. She said that what the three available words had communicated beyond the available content of the words themselves was the specific available quality of the person who said them, which was the quality of the person who understood what the actual situation required and who provided what the actual situation required in the form that was most directly organized around the actual requirement rather than the impression of the providing. He said yes in the form of the complete genuine understanding of the actual content. There is a lesson in Anna Reed's story. Not the surface lesson about the man who appeared behind the widow's left shoulder when the bank's man was at the door and who said three words that made the bank's man suddenly very polite. That is the form the lesson takes in this particular story, and it is a form of the genuine thing rather than the performance of the genuine thing. The form that was available at the specific available moment, because the right person was paying the right kind of attention and was present at the available moment in the natural available form rather than the arranged occasion. The actual lesson is the thing in the grain rather than on the surface. The thing that requires the patient honest, sitting with before the seeing of it is available in the complete honest form. The lesson is about the three available words, not the specific three available words of this particular story, though those are the form that the lesson takes. The three available words in the general available form. The minimum available words for the maximum available content said by the person who is organized entirely around the actual content of the actual situation, rather than the impression of the engaging with the actual content of the actual situation. The three available words that are the honest statement of the available fact in the form of the plain, certain truth said by the person who means them in the complete available form. The three available words that carry the full weight of the genuine thing, without the performance, and without the management of the impression, and without the arrangement of the occasion. The three words that are said at the available moment because the person saying them has been paying the right kind of attention and is therefore present at the available moment rather than at the arranged moment, and who understands what the available moment requires, and who provides it in the form of the honest, certain, plain statement of the fact. You deserve the person who handles it. Not the person who performs the handling of it for the impression of the capable, helpful presence, but the person who understands what the actual situation requires and who handles it in the form that is organized entirely around the actual requirement of the actual situation, rather than around the impression of the handling. The handling that is the genuine thing rather than the performance of the genuine thing, the handling that arrives before the arrangement of the arrival. The handling that says the minimum available words for the maximum available content and means them in the complete available form of the meaning. You have been shaking. You have been standing at the door with the careful dressing that was the only available form of the available dignity and the composure that was the only available armor, and you have been shaking. You have been not going to show the shaking. The shaking is the honest body reporting the honest interior in the most honest available form. The body that is in the impossible, and that knows it is in the impossible, and that is doing the correct management of the impossible at the full available quality of the one available person, and that is shaking because the impossible is the impossible, and the one available person is one available person. The person who steps out from behind your left shoulder at the specific available moment is the person who has been paying the right kind of attention. Not the person who was arranged to be there or who was managing the impression of the presence. The person who came around the north side of the farmhouse for the practical available reason and who saw the specific horse at the porch post and who understood what the specific horse meant and who moved to the specific available location because the moving was the natural available form of the right kind of attention arriving at the available moment. You do not have to handle all of it alone. The handling of it alone for the available duration has been the correct management of the available impossible from the position of the one available person and the correct management from that. But position is the most specific available evidence of the quality of the person doing the managing. But the correct management from the position of the one available person is not required to be the permanent available form. The not alone is the available form when the right person is the available person. And the right person is the person who handles it in the form of the genuine presence at the available moment rather than the arranged occasion. The shaking stopped. Not because the impossible became the possible in a single available morning, but because the not alone became the available form. And the not alone is the specific available thing that changes the quality of the managing of the impossible from the managing alone to the managing together. And the managing together is not the same quality of the managing as the managing alone, even when the available work is the same available work. 3 words in the minimum available form. At the specific available moment. By the person who is paying the right kind of attention. That is the whole of it. And the whole of it was everything. May you find the strength to heal and the hope of a new dawn. Thank you for being with us tonight on Cowboy Ironheart. This story is a work of fiction created for educational and entertainment purposes using AI tools. All characters, places, and events are entirely the products of the imagination, and any resemblance to actual persons or events is entirely coincidental. All rights reserved by Cowboy Ironheart.